Hey, hello, and welcome to our next lecture. Lecture? I meant to say lecture. Our next lecture for multicultural children's literature. And this one covers the canon of LGBTQ children's literature. So that LGBT has been around for a while, and I think we're all kind of familiar with that by this point. And that was just, you just can't say gay that because that doesn't cover everyone. And then lesbian, bisexual, transgender, that's all in there. But then a Q was added fairly recently because we want to cover a bigger umbrella. So a lot of you have heard of LGBTQ, right? So the deal with using Q for queer is that people are a little touchy about that because it used to be a bad word, right? I mean, it still can be if you're calling somebody that. So when you think of like pejorative words like that you want to sling at somebody because you hate them or whatever, then queer was one of them. But now it's used really as an umbrella for all sorts of individuals on this identity and gender sort of continuum, right? So we want to be inclusive, and that this is a way to do it. So that all others, there's a lot of all others. And for those all others, we've added the plus. So this is kind of where I am now in terms of using this acronym, right? So there's a link to a video that kind of explains it really quickly and does a very nice job with it. So take a moment and look at that. But then, like, you're saying, wait a minute, why are we even talking about LGBTQ people in a children's literature class, right? So the deal is that children pick up everything, right? And children are in these families, and children are do identify as LGBTQ individuals, right? Because when we talk about children's literature, we're going all the way up to young adult. That's up to like 18, right? So here it says, the reality, though, is that all children are dramatically affected by anti-gay prejudice, and most, by a relatively young age, already have had exposure to LGBTQ themes and stereotypes, and it's like not good. And when we talk about children's literature, diverse, really good children's literature, we've already said it a million times, or I've said it a million times, that we want to reflect and represent our society. And we also want to educate people that there's a big variety of wonderful, amazing citizens in our United States of America and in the world. And we want to debunk some of those stereotypes by providing diverse children's literature. And it's out there. The LGBTQ children's literature is out there. And people, of course, again, they want their families reflected. So we want good books, right? We want rich, wonderful stories. We don't want how-to stories. And that's, as I recently had spoke about the disability children's literature, or people with disabilities reflected in children's literature, is that started off with like really a bunch of how-to, blah, blah, blah. Boring. No stories, right? We don't want to just hear about like how you go about in this world as an LGBTQ individual. Give us a hook. Give us some great illustration. Make it something that people will really want to hear, and children especially, for sure, right? So this is a perfect example, and some of you might have grown up with Hansel and Gretel, old fairy tale, right? And it's really a good one, actually. So I love this quote, and I'm going to read it. Hansel and Gretel is a story about abandonment and how smart children can save themselves. It wasn't titled Daddy Dumped Me in the Forest. And so many of the early gay and lesbian themed books did just that. Didactically, they kind of pounded into you those how-to manuals, right? Daddy's wedding. My two uncles. All families are different. Who's in a family? All families are special. Boom. Just kind of cram down our throat, right? Like, here we are. You learn everything right on the front title, the cover of the book. Nothing's going to draw you in. It's like, blah, 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 how to. Well, the first LGBTQ book that had a great storyline was from 1989, and it was called Heather Has Two Mommies. Oh, my lordy, what a stir that made, right? And it was a great story. It was really simple, developmentally appropriate for children. Didn't go into big searing subjects here. Just talked about Heather who has two mommies. No big deal. And I love the earlier illustrations. They've updated, but I just love these. So the thing is that Heather has two mommies. Whoa, did everybody hate that book? Oh, yes, they did. Been banned forever and still is banned. And if you look at the link, you'll see that the author talks all about that in a short video, and pretty interesting how people have trashed this book. So check that one out. It has been updated in terms of illustrations. Same story, of course, when we won the right to marry whoever we want, right, in 2016. So I guess that was a cause for celebration for sure. I like the old illustrations, but this is a really fun version as well. So now things are getting better for LGBTQ children's literature. Still some really boring and predictable stuff out there, but now we're getting stories, right? We're getting the real deal. This is Stella, how she, with her imagination, she hears everything talks, trees. And I mean, it's like, okay, I think that maybe she has an LGBTQ mother or father or father, mother. I don't know. I can't remember. But it's like, yeah, but it's still about Stella, who has these amazing skills. We want that part of the story too. And a great, how Felicia was adopted by her parents. I mean, just good stuff. And a kind of fun take on fairy tales, King and Family. There's several of these different versions. No, a sequence. So it's just kind of fun. And this is a pretty popular one based on a true story of a couple of male penguins who raised a little baby named Tango. I think it's in the New York Central Park Zoo or something. And that's been around for a while. And it's really cute. It tells some fun things about a family. So we're all over the place, meaning that we're getting good stories. We're getting representation of LGBTQ people in the world because they're in the world. And we are getting the kind of information and the interesting and beautifully illustrated stories that we want to see in this canon of literature. And certainly the young adult genre is like kicking butt. Excuse my language. No, butt's an okay word, right? This is a girl walking backwards is about bisexuality and princess and xenobia. I mean, this is really cool, like just interesting, but folding in all sorts of themes, but including the theme of LGBTQ stuff in here. Look at all the awards. This one has won about two not young boys, young men or older boys, just kind of grappling with the idea that they kind of are falling in love with each other, right? So when we look at some of the breakdown, and unfortunately, I'm not getting of color breakdown. I'm only getting main characters who are cisgender, which means that they present as they were born, versus transgender. And so we're seeing, of course, as we see everywhere, that all the big red area is cisgender male main characters. Well, those are the cisgender, like how you were presented when you were born and you're male. That's the bulk of our stories, right? So that isn't changing too much in this whole thing. But it's interesting how they are breaking this down. This was from 2010 to 2019. So interesting, I think. But the topics are big, especially in the young adults, so the chapter books and up there, and the topics are developmentally appropriate for the preschool books and moving on up. So no big reveal there. So again, what we want to do, this is like we want multicultural children's literature to teach people, right, and to empower teachers and students to think about the world. And the fact is that they aren't the only ones that are in this world, and everyone should be reflected, right? So it's gotten better. It's getting exciting. It's the way to go in terms of some good stories and good illustrations. But it took a while, and there's a long way to go too, because all sorts of teachers and all sorts of parents of non-LGBTQ individuals are not picking up these books. They're not going to want to pick them up. And as I said, quite honestly, they're age appropriate. They're developmentally appropriate for the age groups, right? So there's lots of friendly things out there, and it's not like you have to, again, be didactic and kind of pound in like, this is an LGBTQ person. Let's talk about that ad nauseum. No, let's just tell a story about kind of an interesting family or interesting kid or whatever and get on with the story. Same question I ask all the time. How can we help counter sexist, racist, ableist, and LGBTQ plus phobic? Because I don't know. I could say homophobic, but I don't know. What do we do? How do we counter these messages? You know the answer. We change the message. How do we change the message? We offer children and parents and teachers and the world better books. Books that reflect all of us, books that give children a sense of their own worth, right, in this world, and other children knowing that those other children are worthy. So, better books. They don't have to pound in all the themes. That's not a good story. Better books. The Boy Who Cried, fabulous. Really cute story. Simple. See, these are developmentally appropriate for younger kids, right? Beautiful book. I think I might have it as a read aloud. Oh my gosh, it's so good. Just, biographies, right? Everybody needs them in their genre. And again, bigger, deeper stories for the older kids, right? Young adult fiction. They can be older or nonfiction. They can cover more complex subjects. But we can go basic when we start with the younger kids, right? All the way up. This is a fabulous story written and illustrated by a fabulous author, Patricia Polacco. And it's a true story. So there's a link for that if you're interested. It's just a good story. And that's what we want. We want good stories. Okay. Talk to you soon. Thanks.